Hollywood has always been political, always been on the left, but in the last year and a half or so, things have spun completely out of control. A political movement has become a revolution, and like all revolutions, it is eating itself. Even the biggest Hollywood stars are no longer safe from the mobs they created. For example, actress Scarlett Johansson was supposed to play a transgendered person in an upcoming film, but had to quit the role after left-wing activists attacked her for not giving that role to someone who was actually transgendered. Well, Daniela Greenbaum is a writer, and until a few days ago, she worked at Business Insider. She wrote a piece defending Scarlett Johansson for taking the role. She said she's an actor, she should be allowed to act. But Business Insider, under pressure from activists, deleted the piece, and she resigned in protest. Daniela Greenbaum joins us tonight. Daniela, it's kind of an amazing story. Give us the quick outline. So your piece, basically, I hope I'm not mischaracterizing it, said this is an actor who is paid to portray other people. That's what she seeks to do here. There's nothing wrong with that. Was that your argument, basically?
Yes, I thought that I wrote something totally benign, and I basically said actors are paid to represent people who aren't themselves. That's what she's been hired to do, and I don't understand the outrage, frankly.
Well, I mean, it's sort of an unimpeachable point. How did Business Insider, Nicholas Carlson, I think, was your editor over there, how did he respond? What did he say to you? What was wrong with that piece?
Well, Nick is the editor-in-chief over there, and about, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours after the piece went up on a Friday morning, I got on a call with him and some of the other senior staff there, and they informed me that many of my colleagues had written them letters, very upset at the point I had made and how I had made it, and ultimately they decided to take the piece down.
What were they upset about? I mean, did they have a case against your point?
Well, frankly, I don't really understand their point, but I think most of it was rooted in that I did not give serious consideration to the point being made by the other side, that maybe because transgender people face discrimination in other walks of life, the film industry somehow owes it to them to find them these jobs, or that, quote unquote, that their narratives are being stolen. And my argument was, acting is about stealing narratives, right? We don't cast people to represent themselves, and so this should not be treated any differently.
So did they ever fully flesh out their point of view, or was it just the kind of sense that you'd violated some rule that decent people don't violate? You said something naughty, therefore, like, we're punishing you?
Well, I was forwarded some of the letters that my colleagues had written, I guess the ones that had said, you know, we're fine with Daniela seeing that we wrote this. And again, they made the argument that there are limited roles for transgender people, and, you know, they're limited roles, rather, that portray transgender people, and that, therefore, they should somehow have first dibs. And my argument was, yes.
Well, I'm just worried. We're almost out of time, and since you practice journalism, I mean, what does it do to journalism? I mean, our audience can assess, but I think you're making a totally moderate, reasonable point. You don't seem crazy at all. I think most people would agree. If you can't say something that obvious and sensible, like, can you practice journalism in an environment like that?
Well, the thing is that I always thought I was inoculated against this kind of silencing because I do identify as moderate. I mean, I'm right of center, but I'm pretty moderate. And so I was naive to think that I was sort of immune from this kind of attack. But the reality is that each victory that this mob claims just strengthens them and reminds them of their own strength. And so I don't think anyone is safe from this kind of attack.
That's exactly right. That's a really smart point. Godspeed. I hope you find employment somewhere much better than Business Insider. Thank you, Daniela. Well, in honor of today's summit here in Helsinki, the New York Times, a newspaper in the United States, released a cartoon portraying President Trump and Vladimir Putin as gay lovers. The point was, it's wrong and shameful. But wait, this is the New York Times. They're not supposed to think that's wrong and shameful. What exactly were they saying? Joining us now is journalist Chadwick Moore, who we hope can sort this out for us. So they're using, Chadwick, the New York Times is using the suggestion of a gay relationship between these two as an attack on them. But you think of the New York Times as a paper that wouldn't attack people for being gay. What do you make of this?
Well, of course, it can't be homophobia because it's the New York Times, right? And they're totally exempt from something like that. What I make of this is it's firstly extremely juvenile. You know, Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel are two other torchbearers of the dying and stale establishment culture who also have recently made gay sex jokes about President Trump. And it's the sort of behavior that is tailor-made for a Huffington Post think piece about the history of gays as a punchline, about how cartoons are, you know, equate violence. Yet I haven't seen these think pieces. I wonder why they're not calling out their own side for attempting to make fun of gay people. Maybe when the left tries to bully a lot of these soy boys at the New York Times, maybe they were called gay on the playground, and maybe this is the only way they know how to bully someone back. I don't know.
But wait a second, aren't there all these highly funded groups in Washington that exist to stop this kind of stereotyping and sexual identity-based attacks on people? Where are they? I haven't seen any statements from them today.
That is a really wonderful question. There's an organization called GLAAD that was formed only to combat negative images of gay people in the media. GLAAD certainly come after me as a gay person plenty of times. I guess I'm a negative image of gay person in the media. But I haven't seen them going after this cartoon. I haven't seen them going after any left-wing celebrities who've made these crude homophobic jokes. And imagine if the New York Times had run, you know, a cartoon about Hillary and Vladimir Putin's relationship. Maybe they had a hot and heavy affair and a uranium baby popped out. What would the left be doing then? They'd be losing their minds. This is it's a typical hypocrisy that we continue to see from them. They turn a blind eye when their own side does it. It's time and time again. Gay seems to really be in the zeitgeist lately, with Joy Reid making homophobic remarks. Of course, she's immediately forgiven. You know, meanwhile, Vice President Pence says, you know, supports like some money going towards therapy 20 years ago, and they still can't get over it.
I'm starting to think they're hypocrites. You're starting to convince me, Chadwick. Great to see you tonight.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Well, Yale Law School facing backlash after praising President Trump's Supreme Court nominee and Yale alum Judge Brett Kavanaugh.
More than 200 students, staff, and even some alumni now calling for the school to walk back its praise in an open letter, writing, quote, "People will die if he is confirmed. We hope you agree your sacrifice would be worth it. Please use your authority and platform to expose the stakes at this moment and the threat that Judge Kavanaugh poses." He
is a threat. Yale Law School and campus reform correspondent Emily Hall is here to react. Emily, thanks for being here this morning. So let me play a little bit of let me show a little bit of the original press release that Yale put out. And it said, in part, it said, I quote, "I've admired him for serving as a teacher and mentor to our students." That's one of the deans there. Another quote is, "He is a terrific judge. I love teaching his opinions because they are smart, thoughtful, and clear." Another professor at Yale. So these professors simply coming out and saying, hey, this is a qualified guy, yet others saying people are going to die.
Exactly. So we have our professors that came out in support of this nominee because Judge Kavanaugh has been a really valuable member of the Yale Law School community for many years. And I think they're logical people. I was nervous about going to Yale Law School because of the notoriety of how liberal the school is. But I was very impressed to see that my professors were willing to stand up, even against their own partisan interests, to support a nominee who's very clearly qualified for the position. Unfortunately, I've been really disappointed in my peers who aren't willing to do the same thing and support people regardless of their partisan affiliation.
Yeah.
It's disappointing that they won't acknowledge the real accomplishments of Judge Kavanaugh and the importance of the nonpartisanship of the judiciary.
So, Emily, I want you to hear this tweet from former Democratic aide Brian Fallon. He says progressives should keep a list of names of the sellouts at Yale and elsewhere who are right now trying to smooth a path for overturning Roe and gutting of the New Deal. They should be unwelcome in future Democratic administrations. What's your reaction to that?
I think, unfortunately, this is really indicative of the political climate today. And when people try to contribute to making the judiciary a more nonpartisan venture and supporting people across partisan lines based on their qualifications rather than just their ideology, they're put on these blacklists by Democratic operatives that, you know, are trying to make things into everything must be politicized today. And this is something that we see students taking after these Democratic leaders. We've also seen this at the very high level of Democratic leadership, with Chuck Schumer saying that, you know, all Trump nominees would be opposed by the Democratic leadership, regardless of who they were, before one was named.
Yeah, right
and
out the gates.
To that, campusreform.org did a video that I know you've seen on Fox and Friends, where students, before the nominee was named, was calling this nominee a racist. even though there was no nominee.
Of course, the unknown nominee was already a racist. Well, Yale, facing criticism, put this statement out. They said, "We are a nonpartisan institution. We routinely acknowledge high-profile nominations of our alumni. We did the exact same thing not so long ago when Justice Sonia Sotomayor of 1979 received her nomination." So Yale simply saying she was a liberal, we liked her. He's more conservative, we like him because he went to Yale. So they're, of course, just supporting their own institution.
Absolutely. It's in their interest to support their own alums. And I think it's really unfortunate that students are not willing to allow the university to be a non-political actor. And I think that incidents like these are why we see so many liberal universities today. When a university engages in activities like this, which are really not partisan at all, they get backlash from their own students, from their own alums, telling them that they must be more liberal actors.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not often that on Saturday morning I wake up and praise Yale, but good for you this morning, Yale. Emily Hall, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.